All right, this is a project conducted by Engineers Without Borders in Guatemala. And to the left is the engineers that are building a water system, and to the right is the children for whom they're building it for. This community had a previous water system that was created by a nonprofit organization called CARE. However, the project was abandoned by them and the water system eventually broke down. So these engineers worked with the community and ended up bringing these people fresh water that, whereas before they had to travel about 8 kilometers in order to get it. Hi, my name is Alli M OW, and that is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. Help people like those kids get the resources that they deserve. And so this year I'm studying mechanical engineering with ISM, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how that ties into what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, a little bit about me. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I lead a Wednesday night Bible study at my house. I've done that for the past 3 years. I love serving my community in that way. I also love serving on international mission trips. I've gone to Brazil once, and I also go to Chicago every single year for spring break. And I also enjoy math and physics, which is a huge reason why I chose mechanical engineering. This is my second year in ISM. For ISM 1, I studied international missions in Africa, which is very different from mechanical engineering, but also kind of not, because I'm still doing exactly what I love, which is using my gifts to serve the Lord. I still do want to do missions, but I also want to take a skill with me to go, or when I go, and so that's where mechanical engineering kind of comes in. And so last year I studied under the mentorship of Eunice Cruz and Dee Dee Benjamin. I was able to create a website for all the small Bible studies in Frisco ISD high schools. And then we had an event where we got all those Bible studies together called Unite. And that experience was very fulfilling. I accomplished everything that I wanted to. A girl ended up actually accepting Christ at this event. And so all of my work for that whole entire year was completely worth it. However, for this year, I wanted to do something a little bit more challenging. Because I've been following Jesus since I was in first grade, studying missions wasn't extremely challenging, but studying mechanical engineering, something that I have little knowledge about, was really a challenge, and so that's why I chose this for my ISM 2 topic. And so my goals for this year is to decide if mechanical engineering is something worth pursuing. I want to become educated on what engineers are doing internationally, and I also want to create a product by the end of the year that I'm proud of and that can ultimately help other people in third world countries, so that if I do choose to do mechanical engineering, I already have that product that I can take overseas. And so my quote for this year that really does tie my love for missions and engineering together is, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ." And that's 1 Peter 4:10 through 11. And so this year I really want to identify what gifts the Lord has given me and how I can use those gifts to further His kingdom. And a big part of ISM is conducting informational interviews. And so I conducted 9 interviews with not only mechanical engineers, but also people of in different branches of engineering, so that I could get kind of a taste for both sides. And we're going to be talking about 2 of my favorite interviews that I conducted. My first interview was with Mr. Alan Hill, and what he really stood out from the beginning. Right when I emailed him and asked him to go to interview with me, he immediately said yes, and then sent me links of information about his company. And so right off the bat I could tell that he was willing to invest in me and in my future, and I actually ended up choosing him as my mentor for that very reason. The interview, not only before the interview, but the interview itself was awesome. He loved every part of his job. He's also been on mission trips to third world countries, which is extremely important because he has seen the need over there. He hasn't just heard about it, and he's actually been willing to be a part of helping people in third world countries, which is something that's near and dear to my heart, and so I'm glad that that's important to him as well. And overall, his enthusiasm, his honesty and his willingness to help me really stood out. The sixth interview that I conducted was with Professor Phuc Phu, and not only him as an individual was impressive, but also his story. He came to America as a refugee in Vietnam, and after seeing the destruction in his home country, he had the desire from a young age to go and help make the world a better place. And so he started studying civil engineering, and then found out that his heart was really in agricultural. And he is currently the lead project manager of Engineers Without Borders, and he supplied me in that interview with the main resource for my original work. So he was a great resource. I loved hearing his story, and that's also a great connection if I ever do want to intern or work with Engineers Without Borders. I've met with him, I know him, and he's offered to get me in contact with people in college that I can work with. And so another big part of ISM is the secondary research part of it. So we look at articles, websites, and then conduct research assessments. And so we're going to be talking about two of those research assessments today. The first one that I did was with LifeStraw. And LifeStraw is a water purification device that purifies water as you're drinking it, which is really cool. They use hollow fibers in order to get out 99.9% of bacteria and parasites, which is huge for people in third world countries that do not have this technology. And I was amazed not only by the product itself, but also how they used it. So what they did is, in 2011, they donated 1 million of their units that enabled 4.5 million Kenyans to have pure water for 3 years, which is, I mean, that's life-changing to them. To be healthy for 3 years, that's incredible. But not only was that contribution impactful, but they ended up actually profiting off of that donation. What they did is they argued that these Kenyans were no longer using wood to boil their water, and so they were no longer polluting the earth, so they gained positive carbon credit points. And they actually ended up taking these points and selling them to companies that were over polluting. And so they did cheat the system, and ended up profiting off of their donation. However, this was able to impact 4.5 million people for the greater good, which is incredible. And so what I really learned from this is that I need to look broader than just the problem and the product itself. I need to look beyond and see the greatest potential that my product could have. Another really cool thing that I researched was geothermal pumps. And if you look in the illustration, it describes it a lot better than I ever could. So what it does is it utilizes the constant ground temperature of between 45 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on where you live, and it circulates either warm or cold air, depending on the season, down through the ground, where it is naturally either cooled or heated, and then circulates back up. And so what's really cool about this is that there's no outside power source, and it breaks down very little. And so what Engineers Without Borders did with this is they created a cooling facility in Kenya that allowed farmers to increase the shelf life of their products. Because beforehand, because it's so hot in Kenya, they were losing about 60% of their products before it even got to market, which means that they could be profiting that much more if their products had lived longer. And so now they have that, now they're able to do that. And another cool thing that I learned from doing this is the 3 different types of geothermal pumps, which is highly dependent on where you're looking to place these. And so that, again, it's just looking at your environment, it's looking at all of the things encompassing the problem and finding the best solution. And this is where I really learned that I enjoy civil engineering. And so from learning that, I plan to further expand upon it and keep researching and see if maybe that's a potential route I could go in college. And so another big part of ISM is our original work. It's something that we work on all first semester. It's highly research-based, and so what I did, like I said before, from the packets that Mr. Vu gave me, I researched them, and then I actually proved what I learned from researching those projects and created a potential project for an Engineers Without Borders chapter in North Texas. And so we're going to be looking at one of those projects today. This is the Ensango Agricultural Training Program. And so what this project encompassed was designing housing for both students and staff for over 50 people. And they also demonstrated 23 different agricultural and civil engineering techniques on 15 to 20 hectares of land, so that these students could learn these attend this program, learn the techniques, and then go out and teach other people to do this. And so there were two things that I really enjoyed about this project. One, that I got to learn again about civil engineering, which I'm finding that I enjoy more and more, and also that the potential future impact that this project can have. As these students continue to get cycled in and out, like, more people are getting impacted. And so, like, this one project that they spent, yes, a lot of time on, not a lot of money on, is going to have a huge impact for, like, generations to come, which is just incredible. And I really want to be a part of something like that in the future. And so after researching all of these projects, I made a research outline of the things that I need to consider when looking to do a potential project in a third world country. So one thing that's absolutely huge is a potential partner. If you remember to the very first example that I showed you, the project in Guatemala, the reason that project was unsuccessful wasn't because the engineers were bad from CARE. It was just because they didn't have anyone to check up on them and make sure that the system was still working. And so I need to find a potential partner that's within traveling distance and can check up on them for every 6 months or so. Another thing is I need to look at the site history over the past 70 years. Mr. Vu was telling me in one of these projects that when they visited, they realized that there were no elderly people, which is something that they were prepared for. And they found out that there was a genocide there 50 years earlier, so there was not a huge elderly population. So things like that is what I need to look at and consider. Another huge thing is resources, and not just like the natural resources that the community has, but also what skills the people can provide, what their capability is to be taught those skills, and then also if we need any sort of outside resource, how we're going to get it. So looking at surrounding towns and villages, and which contributes to our overall cost as to how much those products are going to be. Another big thing is like the culture of the community. Are women allowed to help? Are they not? How they interact, language barriers, things like that. And then another huge thing is training and post-evaluation. Once the engineers leave, they can't really directly impact that site anymore. And so they need to train the people how, when this goes wrong, this is how you fix it, things like that. And also they need to thoroughly explain when they're going to see results. Because for a lot of the agricultural techniques, they're not going to see results until two seasons later. And so they need to really explain in depth, like, this is where you're going to see the impact of what we've done, so that they don't lose faith. And so this is the project that I actually put together. So I went to the North Dallas Engineers Without Borders page, and they had information about a potential project in Bolivia. And so I took the information that they gave me, which was provided from the Memphis chapter. They visited in 2011, and then I did some research on my own. And from this, I found out there are two main problems, which is that they do not have a working water distribution system, and the water that they have is contaminated. They are on a mountain range in Bolivia, and they are downstream from a city. And so the city is polluting the water or polluting the river, and by the time it gets down to them, it's already contaminated. And so they need a way to purify that as well. And so I researched, and I found that a hydraulic ram pump with an attached storage unit would be best for these people if they could find another water system that was not contaminated. And what a hydraulic ram pump does is it takes water from a lower elevation, and just using gravity and pressure is able to get it to the higher elevation. And so this would be huge for them. Another great thing about this is that it's very low cost, it's very low maintenance. People have been using this for hundreds of years, and so it's very reliable. Another thing for if this was not possible would be ceramic filters, teaching them how to make them and how to use them. And what's great about this, to filter their water, it's cost efficient, it's low maintenance, and it's high durability. And so this would be a great, simple solution to their water system problem. Ceramic filters do not filter everything out, but I mean, making their water just a little bit more cleaner would be extremely beneficial to them. And so that concludes the beginning of my ISM 2 journey. So far, I've been able to find the solution that best fits the issue at hand. It's not always the best solution isn't determined on the most efficient way, but it's looking at like how efficient it is and the cost. There are a lot more factors that go around it than just efficiency, which is something that I've learned from looking at all these projects. Another thing is that I've learned how to consider the limitations encompassing the product, and looking at the whole instead of just like zooming in on the project itself. And I've also learned that I need to keep an open mind. I found that I really liked civil engineering, like I've stated before. And so I need to keep an open mind to that, but also to mechanical engineering, and see which best fits me as I continue this. That is all I have today. Thank you guys so much for listening to this, and I can't wait to update you guys on how my mentorship goes and how my final product turns out. Thank you.